As personal fitness and health and wellness becomes bigger and bigger, I mean, this whole coronavirus thing has really taught us to take care of ourselves, mentally and physically. And I think one of the key things that is emerging here is about how sauna therapy and hot and cold is a key component to living well and having a fit lifestyle. And I could think of no better example of this or lead into this than the Mindstrong project. On the bench today, you'll be hearing from Brian, seated to my right on the sauna bench, and Harvey, seated to my left. Harvey is the CEO, founder of Mindstrong Project, and Brian is one of the founders and supporters of this effort, the key group of guys. Brian's a pro athlete, a pro football player, played for the Vikings and down in Houston. And these guys are bringing sauna therapy, the hot and the cold, to professional athletes. And it's super exciting. And you'll hear about chasing the edge. It's an easy concept to understand about how athletes sustain performance. And we talk about sauna therapy in the world of pro athletes and locker rooms and what the environment is like today and what is going to be inevitable, a higher awareness of the hot and cold in the future. The mental side of hot and cold and sauna, and it's always subjective. It's about self-awareness, about regulating focus and attention. A very key driver and practice for high-performance athletes. We get into the physical elements of sauna and cold therapy and about thermogenesis and this the stress adaptation, heat shock proteins. So yeah, it gets really in depth, but I think this is a really fun and easy podcast to follow along with. What Mindstrong Project is about with their training, respiratory training, hot and cold training, higher level of CO2 tolerance, saturation of oxygen in the blood system. And we do some Wim Hof breathing, some deep breathing right here on microphone, and you guys can try along with us. And we talk about what sauna means for these guys. And how Brian says, and Harvey says that he's never been in an environment that has brought out more from him as a human than sauna and cold. So without further ado, please welcome Harvey and Brian to Sauna Talk. This show is brought to you by Nice Mug. Nice Mug is the only mug made entirely out of ice. For more information, go to nicemug.com and enter the coupon code SAUNA for 10% off your entire purchase. Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sauna Talk, and we're on the bench, and this is the place to Sauna Talk. Wouldn't you agree, guys?
This is it, Glenn.
Right on. And to my right, to introduce yourself, Harvey, go ahead.
Yep, my name's Harvey Martin, so I'm the founder of the Mindstrong Project, and Brian Peters.
Then I'm Brian Peters, NFL linebacker, spent the last 7 seasons playing professionally, and then I'm also a coach for the Mindstrong Project.
Right on, great. And I'll turn it over to you, Harvey. Explain the Mindstrong Project and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, so essentially it started out with Brian and myself, and then a couple other guys, I gotta say their names, Steve McGuigan, Tom Buski, and Dave Fisher. So Dave plays hockey still, he's over in Austria, played for the Gophers for a bit, and then Tom played baseball with the Gophers, was drafted by the Miami Marlins, and then Steve was at Illinois Chicago and played professionally for a bit, and then I was with the Brewers, and then Brian obviously has been with the Vikings and the Texans, and we've all known each other and trained for years, and how it really started was we wanted to, one, be a team because we're all buddies, and two, we wanted to try to find a way that athletes could sustain performance. And whether that be mentally, physically, or emotionally, we were trying to figure out what do people do that not to necessarily chase an edge and have an immediate result, but how do they chase an edge, understand the edge, and then sustain the edge.
Right on. And Brian, how would you, what does that mean to you? Like chase the edge and sustain the edge as a high performer in the world of athletics?
It's a very easy concept. I mean, I've adopted it. You can look at it from an aggregation of marginal gains, where if you get 3% better from a nutrition standpoint, or an exposure like a sauna or a cold tub or things along those lines. I was always very grateful for the opportunity to be a professional athlete, so I did anything and everything I could to maintain that title and maintain that occupation, really. So it took a turn for me where it went from different physical training protocols, different nutrition protocols, supplements, and I kept growing and growing, learning about IV therapies, and eventually I got into sensory deprivation chambers, where I learned how to breathe on my own with Wim Hof training. I just learned that from the internet. Then got into free diving protocols, and that's when me and Harvey kind of merged minds, and that's where started interjecting a little more sauna work and ice tub work on top of that.
Nice. Do you guys, where do you think we're at in terms of sauna therapy with professional sports? Do you think we're at like if you were to grade this 10 meaning we're fully developed, 1 meaning we're just a few athletes are getting into it, like we're the early stages? I'll go to you, Harvey. What's your number 1 to 10 today?
That's a great
2019.
Question. I'm going to try to come at this from an unbiased opinion, because I think through my lens it seems high, but every time I think that it seems high, I find out that that's just what I perceive it as. So I think in my viewpoint it seems like it's very relevant now, but I would say if I take my scope of thought out of it, or my perception out of it, I think it's a 5.
Okay.
And yeah, that's
Brian,
what
what's
I would
your
say.
number?
I'd say it's currently around a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
I constantly see players inside of, like, the saunas are very, very large rooms for the most part. Most of them are probably 10 by 10 at the NFL level. And you see a lot of guys use them. My first exposure to it was up here, actually, in Minnesota, where it was Harrison Smith. He was jumping either hopping in the shower or jumping in the cold tub and hopping back in and just kind of getting that flush going. And then, but it's just, it's players passively using it. There's not guys following protocols. Like, there's guys, like, doing 30 minutes, feel good, get a good sweat, or whatever it is. But then down in Houston, it grew where we had a sports science guy who's on our staff. Guys were asking about improving sleep, so he started having them do different sauna rotations with shower, not a cold shower, just a shower, just to give you time in between. So it's slowly creeping its way into professional sports, I think. So that's why I'm going to keep it at a 3, because it's not something that it is prescribed by any means, but it's knocking on the door.
Super. Where do you see this going with Mindstrong? What you guys are up to? Want to give a little? We were talking off mic a little, Harvey, about this. The first word, the prefix of Mindstrong is the mind, right?
Yeah,
the mind.
Yeah.
We can come at this from the physical or the mental.
Yeah.
Do you want to tackle one of the two first?
Yeah. So I think of it as, like, we know that sauna and heat transmission, like, creates neurotransmitters in parts of your brain to get activated, right? Like, norepinephrine is basically a focus and attention driver, right? And so you look at, like, we've seen that through studies and we've seen that through science to be able to show, like, enhanced clarity through heat treatment. And then cold treatment's the same way. Like, I know Wim Hof, and we all know of Wim Hof, what they do, and they do amazing work. But, like, I always tell people, when you're in heat or cold, like in the cold for this instance, like, it's hard to not be at your most primal state. Like, your reptile reacts, right? And so you have to be, like, very moment to moment. So I look at it, if we take away all the science side of it and just get to the intuition side of it, it's super present moment living. And so if you can understand the moment through extremes of heat or cold, now you get to know your breath, which is, like, the one constant that follows all performers, right? And it's the connector of mind and body. Like, we've known this. I mean, yoga has been telling us to study breath for 2,500 years. I mean, if you look at that, it's one of the longest sustaining practices in human performance. And somewhere along the lines, we almost like don't respect that as much, in my opinion, because it's so old now, but it's so sustainable. So when you look at that, like heat work has been going on for thousands of years, right? Like the Finns have been doing this for tons of years. And so we're talking about modern day living and bringing that into the NFL or the big leagues or those sort of things now. But what we want to do is we want to take breath practice, heat treatment, cold treatment, community, all these things that we've known for thousands of years to work. And we want to essentially supply some sort of like proof or trust or sustainability for the current athlete to get back to their primal.
So we have this from a mental side.
Yeah.
We're staying on the mental element. There's this experiential. We know this is great for the mind.
Yeah.
And then there is the experimental.
Yeah.
Like, and to touch on the experimental, this is very like cutting edge.
Yeah.
The work that you guys are initiating, the potential collaboration that we're having with the Sauna Research Center, the ability to test, right? Like, and how we develop these protocols for proving or testing the mental, the mental benefits of sauna.
Right.
Not to put you on the spot or either of you guys on the spot, but imagine some point in the future where we're collaborating together and we're developing these studies with athletes. We have a control group that has never sauned before and won't sauna. Then we have a study group that has never sauned before, and we bring them into the protocol that we know that we will do.
Yeah.
How will we measure from a mental side of things? Again, I'm putting you two on the spot, but is there any thought to that?
I can take that first and you take it.
Yeah.
I think that the mental side of it is going to be, it's no matter what, it's always going to be subjective to a certain level, right? And so like that's going to be awareness. Like whenever you're talking about mental training or mental progression, it's self-awareness. Like that's what differentiated us from every other species on Earth, right? It was our ability to solve and create problems, which is built through awareness. So I think that, like I mentioned, if we can acquire higher levels of focus in an overstimulated world, like the proof would be objectively we can show that sauna is basically creating a higher level of focus. And it creates the ability to slow your respiratory rate. And it does these things. That would be my proof.
So to interject, I mean, maybe, and I'm just spitballing with you guys, this is the beauty of sauna talk and collaborating, is we can formulate some of these plans and ideas. I mean, could it be that we have some sort of a, like a test, like some sort of a aptitude test, like at the beginning of the study, or I don't know.
Yeah, so there's some things that, like, they do body oxygen level testing, which measures your breath holding, CO2 testing.
So now we're going over to the physical, which I'm totally cool.
No,
Sure.
So if you want to look at mental, for me, it's always a quick little, we do not a test, but just kind of gauge your stress level or your ability to deal with stress is how long you can have take 10 breaths in the cold tub. Go submerge, come up, you get 10 nasal breaths, how long does it take? So your ability to control your breath.
This would be a marker.
A marker.
Yeah. Just that's an easy test. So I can tell the days where if I didn't get enough sleep or I'm not ready to go yet, I can't control my breath in that stressful state. Then for me, from just a mindset standpoint, nobody else on my team was going up into their neck in the cold tub. Nobody else was riding the bike in the sauna. That's a mental edge on me. I'm doing what other people are not in pursuit of what, even if it's the chasing edges law of aggregation of marginal gains, where if I'm gaining 3% on them because I'm riding a bike in the sauna as opposed to riding a bike outside of that, I win. That's just building bricks of mental fortitude on myself. So that's how I always approached it.
Mental.
Yes.
Physical,
mental.
we can measure.
Yeah.
But you're talking about some mental stressor
to
bring you to that marginal improvement or advantage.
And then, again, you're talking about intangible things. Like you can't touch a thought in those scenarios. And confidence, in my eyes, is earned. Confidence is always earned. Everything else is ego to some extent. We always get back into the stoic phase, but you earn your confidence. My confidence is from I work in the heat, and then I breathe in the cold. Those are my edges. Those are just more edges for me to have over my competition.
Thank you. Did you guys see? It was that NFC championship playoff game with Seattle and Minnesota outside, and Bud Grant came on the field.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's something to that.
For sure. Well, wouldn't that be like essentially? I mean, that's like brown fat, right? Like they're showing a lot of proof with that too.
Yeah. I'm staying focused on the mental side of things, right?
Yeah.
And no. And
But what I would say,
what
I would say, and this is what we actually think about it. So a lot of our slogans is mindset through movement, and so what it really is you're trying to understand the mental side through physiology. Because if you think about like your brain and your body, like your body is no matter what in the present, which is what people are always trying to objectively chase in the mind. But the mind is the thing that we have the ability to foresee the future or reflect on the past, right? But then you're essentially taking out information of present moment physiological responses.
Beautiful.
Which was where I would make the debate that the mind is the body.
Yeah, man.
And
well
so
said.
if you're walking around with your shirt off, like you've literally just adapted to that, which would have a higher threshold to your psychological state.
Yeah. I purposely wanted to start with mental as it relates to sauna and athlete training, because it is the less tangible. It's a little more
For sure.
difficult maybe to get our arms around, right?
For sure.
Yeah. By the way, Brian, how many different saunas have you been in, say, in your day?
Nothing crazy, probably. I mean, gyms included, probably 30.
Can you feel a difference in heat where you're sitting now?
Definitely, it's more of a love affair than anything with the wood burning sauna. Is just all the aesthetic that comes with it, but also just the recent, I guess, push has been for these infrared saunas, and I don't like that heat as much personally. It doesn't give me the experience. It doesn't give me the texture of the experience either. So it's just for me, obviously the heating up process is different, especially if you start adding steam to the mix as well. But no, I'm a Kuma wood burner now.
I put you on the spot, but
easy.
Hey, you answered correctly. There's a $20 bill right outside.
Yeah.
So we tackled I think, in my eyes, again, it's a little bit more difficult to explain the mental side of sauna therapy. I think we save the physical side for when we're cooling down outside. I'm in no hurry to leave the hot room, but that's such a big subject. I think the physical, the physical training and the physical elements of sauna. I'm real excited to hear, Brian, about your experience with that in your training. Anything else on Mindstrong as it relates to the mental? I think you guys tackled it pretty damn well. I'm really excited.
We get
about
jacked up about it.
Yeah. Well, you met your match with me.
Yeah, no, it's just fun.
We were talking about the traditional Finnish sauna, and the Finns. God love them. They must be sitting back thinking, well, "What the hell, man? We've known this shit for our whole
what
lives,
are these guys
right?"
doing?
Yeah, and we're catching up to something that is quite dear to them. Culturally and spiritually and all that, and you don't need studies for a Finn to tell you that sauna is good for you.
Right.
They will cold water swim without sauna even. Again, I think mental, like staying on the mental subject is I can relate it to this. My son Grant, 24 years old, he was basically born in sauna before he could walk at our cabin, But he's always been a little bit of a wimp as it relates to cold plunge.
Sure.
He likes to shower at the cabin instead of the lake, But he's been programmed to that level of softness, but he's now, thanks to these opinion leaders, athletes like you're saying, Brian, and all that, I got a picture of him going through Lake Minnetonka on Sunday,
that's beautiful.
and we coached him through it, and again, you can speak to this, Harvey, but it's not a macho thing, right? It's about this mental conditioning. People have been doing this for thousands of years.
Well, that's a really cool point, and I think intuitively, like if you think about it, intuition is our highest form of intelligence. So like any of this research or science that's out there about anything started through intuition. So like not just this field, like any other field was originally intuition. And so you look at that now and you go, intuitively, things need to make sense to you. And how does that happen? You have to acquire some sort of experience. Yeah. It's like, the cold, 5 years into it, I've been doing cold training every day for at least the last 3 years. I was kind of on and off for 3 years before that. But it's like now you look at a 5 to 6 year window, I still don't love the cold. I don't sit there and go, I can't wait for it to start. But then during it, it's very peaceful. And then after, it's amazing. So you kind of have this experience now to know I can swim in the lake and I'll be fine. And what I would think is, for anyone who's listening to this, when you think of if you haven't ever done cold, just take a cold shower to start. And if you want to get a really good awareness to how your brain works, before you even get into that cold, you will already start noticing your body tighten up. You'll notice your body start to freeze, which is a freeze state. It's a part of our primal being, right? So anytime you get in the cold, like Brian said, anytime you get in the heat, your primalness now reaches a new level of experience, which turns into being wisdom, which as we move on, that's what we're trying to acquire, is higher levels of wisdom so we can make better choices.
Well said. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Reprogramming the autonomic nervous system. Yeah, the conditional response, right?
Right.
Like cold, run away.
Run, freeze.
And then when we realize how great it feels to take the cold.
It's part of you.
Yeah, then you seek out that, what used to be a, oh shit, response to a, oh yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what Brian can speak to his part of, he's probably one of the most, and he won't say this about himself, so I'll say it, and we'll put him on blast in the box, but, he's one of the most, wanting to know why and seekers of performance of an athlete that I've ever seen in the moment. You see people like myself, I'm years removed from sports, so it's intriguing to me now. But to tackle that stuff in the moment of performance is crazy, and he does it probably better than anyone I've really seen. Here's a guy who is literally going to chase an edge, but he's going to want to know why, know how, and then he wants to understand it, which now, like we talked about, wisdom becomes his own. And that the cold or heat for any three of us, it's ultimately your own teacher.
That's true.
And he does that. Mm-hmm. You can speak to that.
So Brian, I don't want to steal your thunder. You go. You got something on that?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a simple concept. If you're going to push yourself to that extreme of a heat, life's about balance. You're going to want to balance that out on the other end of the spectrum. And then we obviously believe in exposure in general, but obviously humans evolved and adapted with the ability to face both ends of the spectrum. And now that we live in our little AC heat bubbles of 70 degrees from your house to your car to work and back home.
And even in a workout environment.
Dome
stadium, controlled,
It's incredibly controlled, and we have energy systems to combat environmental stress, but we don't use them anymore. So I'm not a rocket surgeon by any means, but that energy has to go somewhere. So in my eyes, if you're going to stretch one way, you got to stretch the other, and you will see that there's not a lot of comfort in the cold, but there is a lot of confidence there.
And then there's a lot of satisfaction in that equilibrium.
Accomplishment. The mental sense of accomplishment that comes with both ends of that, the sauna and the ice, it's there. I hope everyone listening to this experiences that.
Powerful.
Yeah, so look at that. We were talking in the hot room for 18 and a half minutes.
There you go. That's a good round.
Solid.
Yeah. None of the three of us were in a hurry to leave the hot room, but we figured we finished up well with the mental aspects in the work. And I said off mic as we were cooling down, the physical is a little bit a low-hanging fruit and a little easier to explain. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. Experientially, tell us about sauna with you and performance, well-being from a physical side.
Initially for me, again, it was actually, I'm getting in the sauna because everybody else is getting in the sauna. I didn't really understand what I was doing or why I was doing it. So, obviously, I didn't, and I wasn't very tactical with it either. I wasn't doing it to learn or doing it. I wasn't doing it to, am I sleeping better or am I feeling better or anything like that. It was just kind of a team bonding thing.
Sure, right on.
But obviously,
or relaxation, after
relaxation. It's a and then there's the accomplishment to it. There's the relief when you get out. There's just a weird gauntlet of emotion initially with my experience when it came to saunas, and then my journey towards the sauna kind of stepped into the cold after that, where my doctor at the time, I didn't know it was derived from wind, but he told me basically to condition myself to handle 20 minutes full body in the cold tub. He said just work on it, and that was it. So I eventually conditioned myself to do that.
Is this as you were playing?
Yeah, this was so my first year out, I was actually in the Canadian Football League with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and when I was home, I was training at Ohio State University, and they had a cold tub that was readily available to me. So I trained myself to go up to 20 minutes up to my neck in the cold tub, and I didn't have a lot of reason. My doctor just said it was good for me, so and I trust him fearlessly, which is interesting. But but after that, once I started experiencing breath
breath work and cold tub kind of tying together, me and Harvey over here got back on the same page as far as the use of both ends of the spectrum and not just hanging my hat on the cold and being mentally tough in the cold. I learned how to be mentally tough in the sauna as well, and how to balance those two with contrast therapies. Because
well, I sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
I can say that what you said is true, because you didn't skip a beat through that steam that we just experienced.
Yeah.
You weren't phased a bit. You just keep talking right through that wave of steam, didn't you?
No, I mean, just with my evolution into so in football, heat and cold do go together. They tell you to contrast your legs. They tell you to go cold tub, hot tub, and then if you're going to activity, finishing hot. If you're doing recovery, finishing cold. And that's literally all they tell you in football. They don't explain it. They don't say anything besides it. They don't say anything about vasoconstriction, vasodilation. They don't say anything like that. Right. So, but
sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
can you expand on that a little bit more? So recovery, you finish.
So if you are doing a contrast treatment where you're doing anywhere from 3 minutes in the hot to 3 minutes in the cold and back and forth, the prescription literally it's on the wall, saying if you're going for recovery, finish in the cold. If you're going out to activity afterwards, you obviously don't want to go from cold straight to a football practice or a lift or anything like that. So you finish in hot, so you have that that blood flow and that warmth and that that vasodilation. But so obviously I took that and just grew upon it and chased the edge in it, because I'm already getting weird looks and questions from trainers why I'm in the cold tub up to my neck, and I can't explain it fully. So eventually I start asking questions, and my doctor explains it to me, and then me and Harvey are on the same page now, and starts giving me sauna to cold, and then I experimented personally with steam and sauna, comparing them to themselves, and then eventually that got me into. We eventually got exposed to Brian McKenzie, Laird Hamilton, Gabby Reese, their XPT program, and I just from seeing things, I pushed myself. I always kind of did ab workouts in the saunas because it was harder and push yourself. But then now, once you start doing aerobic capacity, you start doing the bike in the sauna, and then on top of the bike, you add CO2 tolerance or altitude training where you have the mask on and those kind of things.
Right.
And again, for me, it was just building and pushing myself. Once the bike got easy, I put the mask on. Once the mask got easy, I tightened the holes in the mask and made it harder. So just that's just kind of how I'm wired. And and then Harvey is probably again one of my biggest motivators from it. He goes, "Oh, that's good. You should be able to do something better than that now." It's just has an easy way of pushing me from that aspect. And it's been again, I'm just a guinea pig when it comes down to it. But I know it feels good. I know it helps. And doing all these things, I was lucky enough to be in a situation where I actually got to put them to the test. So we actually had a new strength coach down with the Houston Texans, and we actually spent and our team wasn't functionally sound by their functional movement scores and hamstring strength and things like that. So we didn't run for the first 4 weeks. So and me, I'm a one run 4 days a week in the off season kind of guy. I train 5 days, and so I couldn't do that. Or I couldn't not do that. But listening to them, I would look for ways to stay in shape outside of that. So I took the underwater pool training, and I went and I started biking in the sauna as much as possible with the altitude mask. And when it came down to it, when we did get out to run and practice and everything again, I was head and shoulders above everybody from a aerobic capacity standpoint. My breathing, incredibly controlled compared to everybody else, and it was night and day. It was I could hear everybody else breathe, and I could hear my calm was untouchable. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to pick apart and ask you, what percent would you say is physical versus mental in terms of your increased capacity and tolerance?
I'd say 80-20 physical.
Yeah.
I think it was my body, because I didn't know what to expect once I did start moving and running again.
Sure.
And I just found myself calmer than everybody else, and everybody else, some guys were tapping out, and I'm not even in that fifth gear yet. So just
so it's worked.
It works, yeah, and a lot of that paired with it. Obviously, I'm doing multiple things at the same time. That's also my introduction to breath work and exhale holds and things along those lines.
Exactly.
So that ability to control my breath and oxygen, CO2, all that together with the pushing myself in a temperature, a stressful environment, I think all added up to me being in better shape. And so I continued the training through the off season on top of running. And then once we got into the preseason, there's multiple situations where I'm doing, like in football, most drives last anywhere from 3 to 9 plays on average. I was in a couple like 15 and 20 play drives, and I'm the only person communicating. I'm the person telling other people to breathe, and it was just cool to see all that stuff come to fruition.
You obviously have the intent toward, making the salary, making the team. You have a huge financial incentive for this, but what a great incentive also for your well-being to have that level of stamina and fortitude. Got to play a nice part in your lifestyle to have that on your side.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love the game of football, and I loved the everything that came with the NFL and that kind of thing. But I've always taken a ton of pride and enjoyed the training side of my job and life in general. Like I always just that's where there's a lot of things in life you can't see tangible results. Again, in the weight room, like you put in the work, the weight goes up. You put the reps go up, whatever it is. But same thing with the sauna and exposure. You put in the work and the time and the patience and that kind of thing, and that you see the tangible results yield from it.
About 80% physical. The mental is not to be underplayed. It sure takes a component of the training, the hot and cold.
But the mind's not going to have that drastic of an event over the body the way that my first 5 practices did when I was dominant from a breath standpoint over everybody else and just in shape.
Amen. Over to you, Harvey, on that. What do you want to say about?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to even hear. I mean, Brian and I talk about this all the time, but it's just cool to keep hearing, because as you're hearing it, you're like thinking through the things that you think of too. It's really, again, I go back to in the first part we were talking about the mind and the body, and it really is connected. And you're gonna get my point of view on this, but it is connected through breath, right? It's like if all 3 of us were to go out and run sprints, we can measure a VO2 max or your capacity, but realistically what it's going to come down to is the first person that starts changing gears, and Brian alluded towards this in like a gear 5 or like a higher gear compared to the other hula he's playing against. Well, the second that you start to over-breathe or you start to shift into a mouth-to-mouth state where I'm breathing in through my mouth, out through my mouth, well, that's an upper chest way of breathing. I mean, anyone who's listening, let's just take a deep breath through your mouth, and then take a deep breath through your nose. And you should see like a difference in your body. If you're taking a deep breath through your nose, like you're going to feel the diaphragm going down, your rib cage is going to expand horizontally, your chest isn't going to rise as much, your shoulders aren't going to rise. Where your mouth, you feel that tendency to raise your shoulders up. That's a higher upper lung part of breathing, which your lungs, because of gravity, doesn't hold oxygen at a higher level of your lung capacity. It holds it in the lower level of your lung capacity. Right on. So if you look at it as vasodilator and those sort of things, if I can have a stronger blood system, if we're in this scenario, if we're going to talk about heat and cold, if I can open up my blood and then constrict my blood and keep working that system and keep alternating my intervals with my heart rate, well, you are mimicking working out, and you're actually eliminating injury prone because you're sitting in a position where you're somewhat still. And now how does that correlate to physical competition? Well, competition comes down to essentially making a choice under pressure. Right on. Whoever does that is the best performer. So like Brian talked about, if Brian isn't a mouth-mouth upper lung breather, if his threshold to that is longer than yours, if we go back to the sprint analogy, if we all go run sprints, the first person that starts to lose control of their breathing, in this scenario starts breathing in and out through their mouth, the respiratory rate starts to increase. The second that happens, your physiology, which is the body, is going to tell your psychology this is a survival state. So you're either going to want to give up, which would be flight, or you're going to want to freeze. And in that position, that's not just a mental state, that's also a physical state. So you look at it and go, if I get into a freeze state because I'm a poor breather, or I can't move oxygen, which is what the sauna in the cold does tremendously for you, well, even without training, just do both of them and you'll see how your state's altered, and you're going to be forced to learn your breathing. If you can control and shift state to breathe less, then your cortex is opened up to make better choices. You can actually accumulate what you're seeing and perceive it to make the best choice under pressure, which would make you the highest level performer in that moment. So you could even debate it back and say, well, then it wouldn't necessarily be a physiological, which would be the body, it'd be a psychological state. You know, because it'd be your mind is starting to get altered by the way that you breathe.
And they really are intertwined.
Yeah, for sure.
And at the end of the day, right? Like
Oh,
to try to
entirely.
pick it apart and
Yeah.
I'd say 80% this, 20 that, it may be missing the overall point that
Yeah.
we don't need to pull it apart, physical, mental, right?
Right, and that's like where you talk about, when Brian talks about how he can still communicate and still talk in a conditioned type state. Well, you have to think like he's training, and you're hearing ways that he trains right now. Like he's training in extreme, so he's training at a high level. So his threshold of breath is he's basically creating a level of adaptation through stress of heat and cold.
Right on.
And that's what like life is. You're trying to create adaptation through
Well, that's life on the
stress.
football field, right? Mental, physical, coming at you, bombarding you.
I mean, even in the weight room, like stress forces adaptation. That's the only way you change is with stress or adversity. Like there's no, you can't just train without adversity and expect, you can't lift lightweight and expect to get big muscles. It's just that kind of concept.
Well, and this is heat stress. I mean, think about the heat shock protein just protects other proteins. You know, it's like it's a fascinating concept, and it's really just putting you into a position where you can stay aerobic longer, which I go back to that mouth and nose breathing for anyone who's listening to this. You want to be aerobic more times than not in your life, and that would be a state of calm nasal breathing, which you stay in the heat and cold long enough, like you're going to get challenged, your aerobic capacity is going to get challenged, which is why they see all those cardiovascular benefits and those aerobic benefits just by heat treatment.
Right.
But if you spend your life in aerobic and you can, and this is being perfect world here, but if you can create the adaptation of anaerobic, which would be like a mouth energy reserve system tanking of your physiology, if you can create that stressor, example being heat, cold, weightlifting, outside of normality of life, then you're going to have a higher threshold to aerobic inside of life. Does that make sense? And so that's what like is so cool about what we're doing too right now, is we're essentially creating a controlled stressor. And we're building a higher
perfect
adaptation.
transition. I want to ask, and I know people listening are very interested about the Mindstrong project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have you answer on two levels today. Like as it sits today, tell us about what the resources are at your facility and the type of testing you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can brush on that one fairly quickly because I know all of this is moving really fast
Very
in your
quickly,
world.
yeah.
I would rather we can talk to what's happening today, but I'm real excited to hear about tomorrow. Like what at some point in the future, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, we're talking about the Sauna Research Center. Do you want to start with what's gonna be, or let's talk about what is?
Yeah. So I'll start with what is very quickly, and then what's gonna be. So everything that I just mentioned is basically you're trying to create yourself. What we've tried to discover in the last couple of years is what tools do you have outside of technology to know yourself, right? So that would be as simple as breathing through your nose and breathing through your mouth. If you can understand that you have a fast respiratory rate, just study your pace of breathing. Is it hard to breathe slow?
So I'm a potential client for Life Strong. Let's come at it that way. And I wanted to see you Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So what would the first thing we do?
Yeah.
We would measure your CO2, so basically measuring the length of your exhale, which tells us how well you can push out waste in your body. And basically that would be like a flat line. And then you can do the Oxygen Advantage, and a lot of the work that they do out in Ireland, I believe, right? Brian?
Patrick McCown.
Yeah, they do a lot of body oxygen levels where they measure how well you can basically have the oxygen levels in your blood, so how well you can hold a breath.
And how is that measurement?
So you would just simply take an inhale, exhale, pinch your nose, close your mouth, and you time how long you can hold that.
Okay,
And
so
that
that's
should
the
be
first
done,
test.
Yeah, that should be done after like 10 minutes of relaxing.
Okay.
So you shouldn't just walk in and go, hey, let's do it right now.
Right on. So I come in and we do that.
Yep.
And what other measures are you after for a client coming in
So-
today?
Yeah,
like
so
Monday?
if we did a CO2, basically that would be like an inhale, exhale through your nose to a certain amount of reps, and then we would measure on time the length of your exhalation
Okay.
after a certain amount of reps.
So after that, any other tests besides breath testing?
Then it would be certain things where, and this is where we're tinkering. We haven't gone as much general pop as Brian alluded towards in the first one, but that would be more so of how many breaths it takes in a minute of a cold tub. So if you have a 10 breaths in through your nose, out through your nose in a 35-degree water,
Yeah.
if you are at 90 seconds right now, and then in 3 months you're at 3 minutes, now all of a sudden like we have some baselines to create programs, but at the same time, if you created a baseline, let's say 10 breaths in 3 minutes, right, which would be pretty slow breathing in a stressful state. If you're 6 months from now and we're doing physical training, mental training, anything that would be like the nitty gritties, right, that would take us forever to get into like a day in the life of training.
Right on. So this
But-
is baseline, baseline
Respiratory
work.
rate. Yeah, this is
Respiratory
baseline.
work.
This
Got
is
it.
like we're trying to create some.
Anything else? Heart rates?
We do heart rate variability, but that's more of a professional athlete type deal. Yeah, so we're back in. Now we're outside. So
Yeah,
we talked about body oxygen level testing, CO2 testing. You can measure someone's pulse, oxygen saturation. You do a lot of pro guys bring their HRVs to us and heart rates. So
Explain that for listeners, HRV.
you want to talk? You're heavy into that.
Yeah, Brian,
aren't
you go.
You guys did a lot of stuff with the Texans.
I
too.
mean, not as much. I haven't done it in the cold tub and the sauna, really. I mean, we do it to track really guys' shape. And we do velocity, acceleration speed, top speed, all those kind of things to monitor just your levels in general.
What does it stand for?
heart rate variability.
Heart
So
rate
it's basically,
variability.
it's showing like your intervals of how your heart beats. You could just do a heart rate, right? You
Well,
could
that's
just-
right. And now with these heart monitors,
Yeah.
just to interject, it's very easy for anyone listening. What is it? Their iWatch or whatever.
Yeah,
the Apple.
whoops. A lot of guys have whoops.
Yeah.
The best way I would explain it, if someone's like sitting there, just the simplest. This is the way that I understand it's the simplest capacity. Is like when you're in a sauna, you would feel your heart rate beating fast. So if you were to measure that, you would see like the beats per minute being skyrocketed.
120, 130?
Even higher. We see
Yeah.
150s,
Yeah.
160s.
Now, explain 150 as it relates to a physical activity.
That's like a moderate. I would say that I don't know. What would you say? I mean, that's a moderate. That should be like what you should be working at in a moderate exercise.
I'd like to get above 130 for all my workouts.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say
maintain
that's like you should see that pretty often.
So if I was walking
running
fast,
workouts. Yeah.
that's a running heart rate, 150.
Yeah, walking fast probably wouldn't be 150.
Yeah.
I
So
would-
think
no,
of that.
no,
So think of that in terms of, what your heart rate. You burn calories.
Yeah, but then a lot of things can be measured by your resting heart rate too. And
That's
then
right.
Like how low you can get. Like a lot of elite athletes, their resting heart rate would be below 50.
Yeah.
That's less. That kind of concept.
What's crazy too is when you do this ice right now, like what we're doing, like if you were to measure that, and we've done this a few times, it's crazy because you'll see how fast your heart goes down, and just feel that. So now go to the intuitive part, and this is what we're trying to train for the future. Is like if you were to just not have these measurables, what we see is beats per minute goes up, and then you see it quickly shoot down in the cold. Yeah. And that's like an interval workout, right? But and you see this in sports a lot because guys will be in football, you'll be in 4 plays, and mentally that makes your heart rate go up. Physically, heart rate goes up. You're making choices. You have all these things, so beats per minute skyrockets, and then you go sit on the sidelines, and it goes right down.
Yes.
And so if you can learn to control that through breathing, or training how we're training right now, and specifically in this podcast, right? You'll see that translate to the field, and then in normal life too. But
Can I interject?
yeah,
Go ahead. You go
I'll say
first.
that's what we look to give professional athletes and Gen Pop in general is tools to adapt to stress, tools to upregulate, downregulate, meditate, all the above. So
Yeah. So as this relates to sauna and HRV, this heart rate business. So let's put it in numbers. I don't know the numbers, but I know the principle. So if I'm sitting at my desk on my computer, average heart rate, roughly, just throw a number.
Your actual aerobic capacity dictates your resting heart rate. So people that are out of shape, obese, like they're going to be higher. They're going to be closer to 100. Some people that are terribly out of shape sit there at higher rates than that. Myself, like my resting heart rate is below 50. It's from around 48 to 50,
which is excellent.
Which is very healthy.
Yes. Yeah. So let's just say somebody's 70, just to throw a number out there. Now, that person gets up out of their desk. Yeah. They walks in their backyard because they have a kick-ass wood-burning sauna, and they're all happy for their sauna session. Yeah. Now, they find themselves sitting on the sauna bench like we just were, and they start tossing some water. Heart rate goes way up. Now we're talking 150.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they go outside and they happen to have an awesome cold plunge, and 150 they exit the hot room. They hit the cold plunge, and as you mentioned, Harvey, that
it's going to shoot down.
You'll
feel it too.
Yeah.
Like you will actually feel, even if you don't have the measurables, you'll see how slow your heart is.
And that's a beautiful meditative state. Just
insane.
To digress. It's just so fabulous to listen to your heartbeat.
Oh, it's insane. It's
meditative.
Especially when you hear silence between beats, when he's dum, da dum. It's just crazy. And then obviously, like the plunge is another physiological effect of water on the face, and then the nerves in the face that dictate the heart rate as well.
Now the sauna bather exits the cold plunge and sits down and grabs a nice cold frosty beverage and just chills. Yeah. What is really significant is that the heart rate is in that calm state is lower than baseline.
Yeah, and that's where I would say what we're doing right now. I mean, and I think all of our opinions, what we're doing right now is in my opinion, first of all, I think this is probably the most meditative health thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I think that what it does for your longevity is insane, but then more so, what we're talking about is respiratory rate, and what I think is what this does is it controls and lowers your breathing cycles in general life, which if you think about it, if you breathe faster, your heart rate's higher. And if your heart rate's higher, you sleep bad. If you sleep bad, you don't think well. If you don't think well, you eat bad. So what we're doing right now is you're literally controlling, and when you're done with a session like this, you will not be breathing fast. So it's like if you can take that into normal life and slower your respiratory rate, you're going to think better, you're going to be less emotional, you're going to have all kinds of behavioral traits that are enhanced. I'm getting cold now. And then
I know, Brian, you're doing great. Where'd you fly in from?
Came from Columbus, but I spent the last 4.5 years in Houston, so I'm warm-blooded now.
I know you are, but you're doing great. You remind me of my son Grant. Okay, let's do this, guys. We're going to do it on mic. Now, everybody, stay here, Harvey, for 1 second. Let's do 5 Wim Hof breaths, and then on mic. We're on mic, no big deal, and we'll continue the conversation in the cool down room. Cool. So let's just Wim Hof it right here. Ready?
Let's do it.
Nice. Beautiful. One of the things I do, and let's get a little geeky about breathing. Harvey, it's so significant for you. You know what I found in my breath work is I'll do about 70%, 80% through the nose, and the final 20 through the mouth. Okay. It just seems to get more oxygen into my system. How about you guys? Any little tricks or thoughts for breathing for the audience? Come to mind?
Yeah, you want to think of it, so I would say this, when you mouth is quicker and quicker out, just like you said. Quick in, quick out. Where you think of the nose is like a nitric oxide, which is producing more vasodilation. You want to go in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You keep talking. So you tell me, Harry, how you do like to breathe? Like, is there, did we get it, or is there more to it?
Lay it out.
Or
Wim Hof is really interesting because he's notorious for saying it doesn't matter what hole, right? He just is get in and get it out.
Yeah.
Whereas like we talked earlier about how we're trying to build your aerobic capacity for all of like living, right? And so if you can train at a higher threshold of aerobic capacity, then you're better. If you can live at a higher aerobic capacity, then you're better, which is the nose, right? So the nose is what's meant for breathing. This is why you have nose hairs. Yeah. This is why we did that kind of example on the podcast already. If you breathe through your nose, you get in that lower part of the lung, which is where all your oxygen lives. And breathing is about using... Oh,
You
sorry.
keep talking.
Okay. Breathing is about oxygen utilization. You guys pulling a trick on me?
I want to. You finish that and you take your time, and I want to hear how Brian breathes because this is important.
Okay.
Breath work is a big part of the Mindstrong project.
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah. So, what I would say is when we're doing like the Wim Hof breathing, or we're trying to train, like you should be breathing out of your nose pretty much all the time until you're working out or you're hanging out. Now, we don't say like never use your mouth when you're lifting or doing anything like that, but you want to be through your nose. Like at sleep, you want to be through your nose. At rest, you want to be through your nose. You want to try to warm up or do some sort of a low aerobic workout out of your nose. You want to build the ability to use oxygen that's already in, which would be breathing less. And so a lot of people think of breathing as they need to bring in oxygen. Well, this is what we talked about, Brian, where we talked about like having the pulse meter. If all of us were to have a pulse meter on, you'd see your blood oxygen levels at 95 to 99.
Yeah.
So you already have the saturation of oxygen in you, and this is really being able to use oxygen that's already in, which would be having a higher tolerance to CO2, which was the testing that we talked about. So if you can have a higher level of CO2 tolerance, now you actually offload oxygen, which would make you a breather of less, in simplest terms, right?
Yeah.
There it is. So that's kind of my take on that breathing capacity.
The easy, again, like I use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Again, like breath as a tool. It's obviously become meditative for me in my daily rituals, but when it comes to it now, I use it pre-performance, a way to manually manipulate my red blood cells, and really just prime my respiratory system for activity, and then I use it for down regulation to get from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic nervous system state so that I can digest my post-workout or digest my next meal that controls my recovery. Like that's just, it's like the breath is a tool, and from a professional athlete standpoint, it's an incredible advantage for those that don't know how to prime themselves for activity and recover, and because recovery is the essence of growth when it comes to the body, and then obviously inflammation and obviously injury in professional sport.
Yeah.
Did you speak to technique though, Brian? Your technique specifically, the mechanics of your breath.
The mechanics are pretty simple to it. Like obviously, like again, a lot of it's intuitive with when to nasal breathe and when to mouth breathe, and how to use that during performance. A lot of what we coach is quick little tempos and protocols to down regulate during performance, that kind of thing. But not like the form, obviously, like. Like nose breathe, like when I'm doing my Wim Hof training, obviously it's diaphragm up.
Can you give us three? Just go into Wim Hof like right now.
What do you mean, my breath?
Yeah.
I actually prefer to go in through the nose and out through the mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
100% nose.
So I look at it as like 100% standpoint. So you go 100%, you dump around 50 to 60, and then you get all the way back up. So it ends up being. That's when I super
so you'll do about 40 like that.
Yeah, I'll do. Oh, so I do. So I've kind of toyed with it because I've done the Wim where like I did the mouth to mouth, and I didn't get the same effect, like the lightheadedness and the finger tingles and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I changed that tempo, increased it a little bit, and created this kind of 90-second rotation in it. Boys are getting a picture now.
Yeah. So how many breaths?
We will do.
I get 50 to 60.
Oh, okay. And give it to us one more time. Give us 3 breaths.
You can even do it. I do nose, so I would be. You know.
But you touched on something. Wim says doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The important is you're supercharging your system with oxygen. Is the goal here, right?
And like for anybody that hasn't tried it, like you can look up the basic techniques of Wim Hof just to experience what it actually does to your body. And for me, that was the hook. Like that delved me into. I went down all the rabbit holes. I learned Wim Hof to the best of my capacity from online, and then I got into free diving protocols. And there's not a lot of breathing for sport. Like in sport, like since I was a kid, they tell you, "Oh, just breathe, you'll be fine." How do you what does that mean?
Yeah.
And you never understand that it's really it should be another pillar of fitness, of professional athletics. It should be nutrition, weight training, sleep, recovery, and it should be breath. Like you need these pillars to be an all-round athlete. And as the studies come out, and whether it ends up being an endurance athlete or a more burst athlete, a sprint athlete, like a football becomes not like aerobic, like basketball or as much more hockey, but it's just like it's there and it needs to be utilized if you want to be the best, and or if you want to be the healthiest, or if you want to be healthy in general. Like it's a pillar of physical health, and it needs to be explored. It needs to be brought to the masses, in my eyes.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. This is Mindstrong.
Yep. Mindstrong project.
Let's move forward a couple of years. Goals for the organization, the work you're doing, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. We can talk in general, but I'd really like to drill into the heat cold. If you look at a slice of the pie, maybe it could be described that way. Obviously, you guys are in a full, comprehensive training environment. What percent or how big of a slice of pie is sauna and cold therapy gonna be as part of Mindstrong in the future?
Oh, I would say, I mean, our hopes is to take this to all of professional sports. I would like to see all of Major League Baseball utilizing this in the next 3 years. That's my goal.
Yeah, and in terms of Mindstrong itself, what percent or how big of a slice of the pie is the hot and the cold aspect? Is this the main work, or a smaller slice of a bigger training pie?
That's a great question. I would say this is our. If you were to go into four pieces of it, you would basically look at it as, you'd look at it as breath as like the starter point. We always kind of break four things into your primal needs as a performer. So 1 would be breath, 2 would be nutrition, 3 would be movement, and 4 would be sleep. Where I would lump heat and cold into movement, right?
Yeah.
So I dump that into, and now not necessarily any particular order, but breath being 1. So you'd have breath as the first pillar, and then no particular order, nutrition, movement, and sleep. And I would just put this in a lump sum of the movement position. And so I would say it's a strong quarter. It's a fourth of our what we do.
Beautiful.
I think its potency is a little higher than that, just because like people aren't used to this. Not yourself, wise beyond your years, but it's the easiest to have people understand and feel it. Same with the breath. So I think breath and exposure, which is what we call the sauna and the ice. Obviously I'm not going to put percentages on it, but I think those are the most potent things that are going to open your eyes as to why you need to adopt this into your life to live a healthy lifestyle and be a high performer if you're chasing edges.
Suppose if you tie it in, it'd be 50% breath, heat, and ice. If you took the 25.
Yeah, and then everything else, we use as many resources and as much knowledge as we have in our hands, and if we don't know answers, we get it to you. But obviously, sleep, nutrition, and movement, we're great in those departments as well, and we have doctors. Even sports psychologists on our team to grow that aspect of it, and obviously that'll be another few years in the future when we get that team firing all cylinders, and that we can be a team for athletes, for teams, for universities, and us just be a proponent of change and growth in that industry and that aspect of life.
Well, I'm excited, Brian. I think it's with the work you guys are doing is right in step with something I believe in personally, really, really big. I've seen how sauna for me has helped, my mental well-being and my physical well-being, and the introduction of cold. You know, I think I even wrote about this recently on Sauna Times, where you know sauna plus cold plunge is like 1 + 1 = 3, and it's quite exciting to see how people get into sauna is often through the back door of cold plunge, and they start with that, and I think it's wonderful. You know, like people are really adopting this this movement toward the cold plunge, and this feeling you get of the mental and the physical part of that. And to me, that's one. You know, you know, as a guy that started with sauna, you know, then well, I've been into cold plunge for a long time, but I never knew it as cold plunge. I always looked at it as jumping in the lake. You know? And anyway, so it's just really neat to see this 1 + 1 turning into 3.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
That is cool.
Right. So we talked about the future, and we're excited for this, and I'm excited. And is Minnesota your headquarters?
Yep. So we're right down in Egan. Is 2015 Silver Bell right over in Egan. That's
beautiful.
That's our spot.
And for those athletes in warmer climates to get an experience to cold plunge, there's no better place than the Twin Cities. You guys are about, what, 15 minutes to the airport?
Yep. So we have pretty much, like, Brian flew in today, and I mean, guys flying pretty much the whole year. I don't even know how many times people will fly in, but they come in pretty much. I'd say the athletes typically come in like right after their season ends, and they'll kind of start their off season if they're from out of state. They start with us, they fly in for about a week or two. They usually train with us for about a week or so, and we do this. I mean, if you want to think even deeper, Brian calls it like the truth barrel in here, you know. So it's like you get anybody into a sauna, it's like this is where you're going to talk about some stuff, you know. So guys come in from their off seasons, girls comes in, you know, whenever you have conversations with people, this is a cool place to do it. So a lot of our work when we do our mental training or we do any mental framing with anybody, we actually do it in here.
Beautiful.
Because it just allows for good conversation.
Yeah, man. So, that's like sauna talk, you know, like it's recorded on the sauna bench. And, you know, I tell people also, I have a clipboard out, you know, the solo sauna. There's times where I sauna alone, and, you know, I'll have a clipboard outside, and just this whole act of heating up, hanging out on the sauna bench, being alone with your thoughts, or being with someone else with your thoughts. It's a collaborative space where, you know, great ideas can come forward, and well said.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so fun.
Yeah. So on that note, what do you guys think of? And I'll start with you, Brian. What is most misunderstood about sauna? As someone who's very into the practice, as you you know, go to other stadiums, deal with other players from other teams or your own teammates that are not into sauna, what do you feel is misunderstood about sauna?
The primary one, which is why it probably has a bad name in sport to some extent, is the fact that people sauna to get rid of their hangovers or like to get their demons out of them, whatever that may be, whatever they partake in on the weekends or during the week. Like you see guys in there sweating out, oh, they got to be sweating out for some reason. Yeah. So there's just a weird negative connotation with that a little bit, but that's null and void for the most part, unless you come in after like a big win. You understand everybody's in there to get some of the demons out. But I think the biggest thing is people don't see it as the tool that it really is. Like if you use it in correspondence with the cold and that kind of stuff, great. Like that's even 10 times better. But if you use the sauna in general as really, again, a staple in your health regimen, it as a consistent, I guess the best way I should have said is consistent use is where I think the benefits lie. Like guys just kind of use it sparingly, or if their friends are in there, or like if they're getting rid of a hangover or whatever. It's not a staple. It needs to be a staple. It's not a sometimes thing. It's a lifestyle, I see.
Harvey, how about you? What's misunderstood from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that I don't think people see I don't think people are necessarily aware of like what this can do for all of their performance, just their balance as a human, you know. So they don't see this as a communal, conversational, thinking, meditative, thought-provoking position. They look at it as they have these at Lifetime or LA Fitnesses or clubs. Or I don't mean to bash on LA Fitness, but I think they see
I've
it
done
as,
it many times.
Yeah, okay. So I look at it more of like people just see it as something that's in a locker room at a fitness club, and you go in there and you get a sweat in, and people look at it as, well, if I can sweat at the fitness club for 5 minutes, I don't have to necessarily warm up before I go bench press or whatever, or
It's a place to stretch.
it's a place to stretch, or it is a place to get hangovers. I mean, I know many people who just publicly go to one and they'll just look at it as, I'm hungover on a Sunday and I'm going to sweat and that'll be my workout. But there's so much deeper into this that you can take with you for outside of it. But what we do, I mean, look at it. We're in the middle. It's like just 5 degrees outside, and we're just hanging out outside.
Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to frame that up for listeners. I mean, this is Minnesota sauna season, right?
Yeah, we're in nature.
You can see the moon. It's full moon out there, and the steam billowing off our bodies. And we all hung out outside and
it's awesome.
Brought ourselves back to equilibrium and got to do it again. So where we are on the bench.
Yeah, and so nature, I mean, look at how hard it is to be a part of nature. In Western civilization, I could be wrong on this, but I think we were considered urbanized in 2008, which would mean that we technically can't get into the purest sound of nature because we're so around sounds and lights and exposure now, and that's like really sad to know as a Westerner, and someone who I'm a very big fan of nature, and I do think that through all the science and all the stuff we've talked a lot, we've also talked a ton about intuition, and I just think nature's your greatest teacher, and like we're training right now with nature, and so this is nowhere near, I don't even think of this as a fitness club, and people who come and experience with us or do what you're doing or do what we're doing, when we're hanging out like this is not even close to what you would consider a fitness club type experience. Like, it's not even close. So I think that you have to, the one thing I will say is we've now done this with hundreds of people. I mean, we've traveled the world and done this. We've done this internationally. It's like we come over here and we're right in it. We're right in it. We're in sync. We're hanging out. We're learning. We're talking. It has been like this environment that we're in right now. I've experienced this environment with hundreds of people by now that I've never met really until that experience. Mm-hmm. And it's always equalized everybody. And the best way I say that is if you train like this, you live like this, you build the culture around this, no one can beat, like we're not going to beat the coma. Like we will never win, and we will never beat the cold, and you'll never beat nature. So now, in an environment that you can't win, you have to struggle with the people with you. You have to look out for the people around you, and then you're with nature, and you're going to get very intuitive with your thoughts, and you're going to have other people bring their creativity to the bench as well. And I've just never seen a play in my entire life. I've never been in an environment that has brought out more from me as a human than this environment. And I don't need science to back that up.
Amen.
Yeah, a mobile sauna is part of the arsenal of the Mindstrong project.
That is part of it.
Big shout out to Daniel and his posse.
Have to,
yeah. You guys leaned in and you built a kick-ass mobile sauna. Hats off to you and Daniel and the crew.
It's amazing. Yeah.
If you could bring a mobile sauna, say that sauna, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We'll start with you, Harvey, on that one. What's the first place that come to mind?
Oh, the first place that comes to mind would be up in Lake Superior.
Whereabouts?
Picture Rocks area.
Yeah.
Nice. Being up there.
The North Shore?
Yeah, North Shore would be amazing. Like where Castle Danger is, that brewery up there.
Yeah, this is a moment to invite you guys to Sauna Days at Larsmont Cottages, first weekend of May. It'll be the second annual. Last year was a real gas. We had 2 or 3 mobile saunas brought up there, and Ursa Minor Brewing made sauna beer.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you guys are in on the mix.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
We'll live this dream together.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. That would be so cool.
Right on.
We'd be down for sure. But if that's for my thing. But for me, I grew up in Farmington, Michigan, outside Detroit, and I would like to, sentimentally, I'd like to take the sauna, the mobile, back to where I grew up. And take it to my buddies. I don't know if it's not very common. They're starting to come around to some of the stuff that we've been doing. I mean, we've been training like this for a few years, and I think it's just now starting to catch steam. And us aligning with people like yourself and kind of finding some other masters in the environment has kind of created some validity and trust in what we're doing to find other people doing it, especially like yourself. You've been doing it for so many years, so it's like you get to learn. And anytime you're in environments where you get to learn, you're curious, so you're excited to go do more. And I would like to take this back to my hometown and sort of get all my buddies from home. I've been trying to get them to come out here and experience. Maybe I'll try to get them out here in May.
Yeah, perfect. Brian, how about you? What's the first spot that comes to mind for you to bring a mobile sauna?
If I could take one anywhere, I do a cabin with my peoples in the dead of winter. I picture a couple feet of snow on the ground, maybe right by the water, like off a dock.
Mm-hmm.
Hole in the ice.
Yeah, just that's my vision, is to have a hole in the ice, old wooden ladder, step down into it,
Beautiful.
get your plunge,
Yeah.
get back into it. But yeah, just
With a core group of friends?
yeah, I think a core group of friends. Like obviously, I think silence is underrated, and I think you need to spend time by yourself. But like if I'm in my happy place, I'm gonna have some of my best people around me to share their experience. And obviously, we know what the Saunable's capable of bringing out conversation-wise. So obviously, like that's my vision of sauna on the water and the snow, and getting both ends of the spectrum, both ends of the exposure.
Another question I ask, I'll ask you first, Brian. If you could sauna with anybody in the world, dead, alive, past, present, who's the first person who comes to mind for you?
I'm going Jesus.
There you go.
Nice. Harvey?
Yeah, mine would be Wim Hof, purely because if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have believed that we could take breathing and create it into a company or a blueprint for training people. So, I mean, he's the pioneer.
I want to make you guys feel at home. Both those answers?
Yeah.
Not the first time. Yeah.
So you keep good company, you know?
Yeah. Well, we're all kindred spirits. You know, on Sauna Talk, I got to interview. He's passed. He was in his late 70s, early 80s, a pastor, and his answer was Jesus.
Yeah.
And I forget who said Wim Hof. As a matter of fact, it was Carrie. It come to mind. Carrie Drinkwine. She's a nutritionist.
Okay.
And her episode is in the queue.
Okay.
So I love both the answers.
Yeah.
And you're in kindred spirit with those answers. Yeah, so I want to thank you guys for being on Sauna Talk, man.
This is amazing.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks. Any final words for listeners? The Mindstrong Project, real exciting. This is tip of the iceberg, to use an appropriate metaphor, perhaps, of the work that you guys are undertaking and building. Any final words for listeners to Sauna Talk? Anyone come to mind?
I'll talk about it more so, Glenn, and this is a thank you to you. Personally, and I think that anyone who gives you their time is the greatest sense of leadership, right? So, I mean, you opened up your doors to us and made us feel extremely at home and put us in a position to experience this, and obviously have the opportunity to speak about it. So it's more so of like the time that you gave us, but making that bigger. A couple years ago, when we created Mindstrong, I remember the first thing that we talked about as a group. It was the first ever podcast that we did. It was actually Dave Fisher, who's a very good friend of ours, and Brian Peters, who's obviously here. And the three of us had just started the company. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know where it would go. We didn't even know really what we were going to do yet. We just knew that we wanted to help people, and we wanted to personally learn on our own. And I remember the line that we had before we did the first podcast was just crazy because we were so scared. Now we've done hundreds of podcasts. I don't even think about it anymore. But I remember the first thing we said to each other as we were cheersing a glass of whiskey was we said, if it's scared, then you have to do it. And while you do it, you have each other. And I remember that like it was yesterday, and I've carried that with me in my life. And so anyone who's really listening to this, you know, it's not that you have to dive into extremes or go into these things. But what's more important about it is the best thing that comment that I just said from this guy who's sitting over here next to me and then Dave who's overseas is it shifted me into a position where I've now traveled the world in the last 2 years and met people like yourself. I've met some amazing people, unbelievable caring people and leaders and intelligent people and people who are just trying to advance the experience of being a human. And if it weren't for riding on curiosity and being open-minded and actually like just seeing things for the way they are and being in other people's cultures and being open to that, I don't think I would have ever been in a position to just comfortably walk into a guy's backyard and hang out and have a blast with you, man, you know. And like I wouldn't have been able to do that a few years ago, and now that I've accepted that, and Brian's a big proponent to my growth in that situation, but
we've now met some amazing people, and we've had a great time, and it's made my life 100 times better. And so anyone who's listening, I would say that, just shatter the framing that you think you have, and shatter the perceptions that you have, and allow yourself to be open-minded. I've literally never experienced anything that's more enjoyable than being curious to be a human. And when you do that, you end up meeting remarkable people.
Thank you. Brian, last word?
That was some poetry there from Harv. But,
No, I'm grateful as well for your time and your hospitality. I mean, just to keep it short and simple, I mean, life's short, so chase the edges, live a little bit harder, enjoy the moment, enjoy good company, and hop in the sauna to do so. Yeah.
Cheers.